Craig Button, Director of Scouting at TSN. One of the nicest people I've ever run into, and I still appreciate all the time you have given me over the years, my friend. Hi.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for the very kind words. I have a great appreciation for you. So, Jason, in full disclosure, I'm going to be a grandfather here in about 6 weeks.
Congrats.
And so, going through the same old things about names. So, my daughter's father-in-law, his name is Greg, and I'm Craig. So they've decided, I shouldn't say they've decided, but what they would like to do, he can be called G-Paw, and they're going to call me C-Paw. I don't know how that's going to work, but it sounds better than Grandpa. So we'll just see how it all unfolds. When is the due date for you to be a grandfather?
Sometime in March, sometime around mid March. It's going to happen. You know what I like for you? We could call you G-Wagon. What's that? G-Wagon.
Big Yorkie and G-Wagon. Okay.
Look out for ladies.
We'll try that one on for size.
All right. Listen, we got a lot to get to. Greg, I don't want to waste your time. So you've had a lot of good things to say about the Sens lately. You could probably run for mayor right now in Ottawa with the way things have gone. So you know what? I'm going to get to this quote right now. I was going to save it to later, but damn it, we're going to get to it. So you said, I think this was on Monday, maybe, if I was the Toronto Maple Leafs, I'd be really, really worried about the Ottawa Senators. Do you stand by that comment? Are the Sens better than the Leafs?
I don't know if they're better, but I think they can be as good. And, there's a lot of context there. And, you make a comment, it gets posted. We all run into that and everything. And I'll just dive into it a little bit deeper. Last year, the New Jersey Devils really made a push up the standings. I compared the Ottawa Senators to New Jersey last year. If I would have said last year at this time, the New York Rangers should be really, really worried about the New Jersey Devils, it probably would have been scoffed at. Well, the New Jersey Devils, we saw what they did. The New Jersey Devils had more points than the Toronto Maple Leafs last year. The Ottawa Senators had way more points in the season heading into the year that I thought than the New Jersey Devils. I think the work they've done, the additions they've had, you get young players. Jason and Bobby, you've both been part of teams that were successful. You've been part of younger teams. And as good as the talent may be, are you ready to really take it to the next level? I think the Ottawa Senators are. And if you go back to last year, mid-November on, maybe a little bit later, that was a good team in Ottawa. That was a really good team. And we know that they can't afford a slow start this year. No team can. But I look at all the elements that they have in their team, the goaltending tandem that I think will be really good for everybody. The defense is stronger. And the forward group, it's not just a talented group. I think they're a competitive, hard group. And I think they're ready to stand up to the challenges, and I think they're ready to take a real significant step forward. And I think it's realistic. And when I compare them to New Jersey, I see that as something that I think that they can accomplish and be a really good team.
Okay, I will wait till we get further on before I ask the playoff question. That's too easy right now. I'm going to save it.
Craig already said it. He said, I heard him when I saw it live. He said they're a playoff team.
Yep.
Well, you can't ruin my show like this, Yorkie.
But it's old news. I've been saying it. All the smart guys in hockey have been saying it.
All the smart guys.
Even,
Here we go.
Even the dumb ones like me, Jason, where I think it's obvious, and all I got to do is go on social media to hear how dumb I am. So if I ever think I'm smart, I just remind myself by clicking into social media.
Yeah, click the mentions, and we'll all find out.
Yeah. So, Craig, the next thing I want to ask about is on social media. If you look lately on the Xbox machine, as I like to call it, you will see all kinds of postings about Tim Stützle and whether or not can he get more than 90 points? Is he a 90-point player? Is the rest of the NHL world now starting to appreciate Tim Stützle?
They should be. And I use the New Jersey Devils as where I think the Senators can go this year with their young talent. Well, I think Tim Stützle could do exactly the same things as Jack Hughes did last year. Jack Hughes emerged as a superstar, and I think that Tim Stützle is right on the cusp of being a superstar. And he's got an attitude, and I say this in the most positive way. He has this can-do attitude, and Pierre made the trade for Alex DeBrincat last year, trying to bring him in. But the attitude that I liked from Tim is he said, hey, if Alex doesn't want to be here, that's fine. We like the group we have. Move on to someplace you want to be. I think to be a good team, Jason and Bobby, this, everybody has to be wired in together. It doesn't mean that at different points in time, you're not looking out to make sure you put yourself in a great position contract-wise or whatnot. But good teams are all bonded together, and the players are bonded together. And I think that Tim Stützle has demonstrated that not just through his play, but also through his commentary. Hey, we got a good group here and we believe in ourselves. And I think they're ready to go out and show that. And, the other thing about Tim Stützle that I think gets a little bit under the radar, he's a chippy player. He's not afraid to, cross that line. He's not one bit. And I like that. I like that a lot about the Ottawa Senators players. I think they have an attitude about them. Claude Giroux, we know what Brady Tkachuk can do. Tim Stützle do that. You're ready to push it a little bit further over that line. Good teams do it. I just want to be quick on this. We all probably saw last night what happened in the Vegas-LA game. When Mark Stone got hit in that exhibition game by Hayden Hodgson, there was no hesitation from Stone, Brett Howden, Alec Martinez. It didn't matter if it was the second exhibition game. It doesn't matter that Alec Martinez has 3 Stanley Cups. They said not happening on our watch. I think that the Ottawa Senators have that type of attitude, and I'm looking forward to watching them push their way as a team into a status, along with Tim Stützle, as somebody to be reckoned with.
I think that's a very accurate statement, not having been around some of the players, but not this core group. I think this core group is that tight. I just get that sense. You watch them play, they all have that little bit of X factor, and they all stick up for one another. So I watched the hit this morning with Stone and the reaction, and I thought the same thing. So I'm glad you said that. I'm glad we talked about it, because I do agree. I think that this team's that tight. If anybody ran in Brady Tkachuk like that, there'd be 5 guys on the ice going right back at that kid.
No, it would just be Brady.
Well, Brady must be, but you know what? Stoner did it too. Nobody's going to hit Brady like that because they're not wanting to pay the consequence. No, if you hit Brady like that, you better hope you get 5 in a game.
Craig, I was just listening to you go on, and the word that comes to my mind when I listen to you talk about the Senators, I love this word, swagger. They've got some swagger, don't they? Like Stützle's a young guy, but he's confident. And I find if you want to get to the next level, it's like it's not really cocky. It's just that belief in yourself and that swagger. I think Stützle just oozes swagger.
I agree with you. And I'm going to go back to both your experience and Bobby's experience. You're both at a stage of your career when you're young, where you're trying to find your way in the NHL. And you're talented, you have the ability, but you're still trying to find your way. And as you find your way, you start to have some success. And now what comes with it is confidence. And as you gain greater confidence, and not only individually, but as a group, you walk more confidently. And then you start to have that swagger. I was at a function on Tuesday night here in Calgary, and Mark Messier was talking along with Lanny McDonald. And Mark talked about, he goes, we were confident. Yeah, we had swagger, but he goes, we believed in ourselves and we believed that we could beat anybody. He said it took us a little bit of time to reach that point, but when we did, we were in a place where we had that belief in one another, which transcended into a team that was very successful. And I think that's where the Senators find themselves. You come into the league as a young player, you're talented and you've been drafted high, or you're finding your way, you're going to be a regular, but you still got to build that base of confidence and belief. And that's why I think the Senators are in a good spot and ready to take those steps. And I know, Brent, you wanted to ask the question later, but I mean, the playoffs to me are something that it's not just a hope anymore. It has to be the reality. And I think they see it as such.
Okay. So today it came out that Andre Vasilevsky just had surgery. He's out 8 to 10 weeks. Does this change Ottawa and the chances for them in the Eastern Conference and specifically the Atlantic Division?
I see them as a playoff team with Vasilevsky healthy and playing. I don't see them much like I saw in New Jersey last year. I thought there was too much there. And so, yeah, we can look at other teams and is Tampa Bay as strong without Vasilevsky as they are with them? No, we know the answer to that. No, you can't lose really good players and still be as good. I don't think the Ottawa Senators have to be concerned with other teams falling back or losing players. I think they're good enough on their own to compete against teams in the Eastern Conference and establish themselves as a team that can be reckoned with. You think back a couple years ago when the late Eugene Melnick made the comment about we're going to be a contender, and here we are, 2023. I know people get excited at different points. You think you might be a little bit ahead of it. To me, they're right there. They're right on track now to be where he thought they could be at this point in time. So I don't think they have to rely on other teams not being good enough or other teams losing key players. I think the Senators can do it on their own merits and their own talent.
So, Craig, there's a little bit of a trend going on exhibition right now. We kind of talked about it before we came on the show. Eric Brandstrom last night played 30 minutes. I think Shabbat was close to, what was he, friend? 30,
Shabbat 30? Was 31:05. Chychrun was 29:47, and Sanderson was 27:01 in the last 3 games.
Yeah. What's your take on guys playing that much minutes this early in the preseason?
Well, clearly it was a must-win game for the Senators. Because is there any other reason to play those guys that many minutes? I mean, you think about preseason, okay? So it's September 27th. It's the early days of preseason. Again, I'm going to go back to your own experiences, you guys. You know, you're trying to find your rhythm into the season. You know, it's early. If it was October 5th, you want to play somebody a little bit more. You know, I would say that. But when you're playing that many minutes. And I make the joke, those are must-win games when you're trying to play your top players those types of minutes. And I think we talk about the balance of the Ottawa Senators and where they find themselves deeper on the blue line, deeper up front. I see it as completely unnecessary in a preseason game at this point. And I think, like, if I was the manager, if I was Pierre Dorion, I'd be going down and saying, what's going on here? Like, this is not a must-win game. This is not something where we have to play these guys these many minutes. And I think that as players are trying to get themselves ready for the regular season's a grind, as you know. And to me, it's about getting prepared and not taxing players too early with that many minutes. And to me, that's my own philosophy, my own belief. I'm shocked when you see those minutes for those players at this point in the preseason.
I think
I don't understand. I just don't. I don't even comprehend how they have got 30 minutes tonight.
Just to be clear, though, guys, because being at that end, it is the responsibility. The D coach has full anatomy when you're running the D back there. Like, obviously, there's a game plan, but in exhibition, it's the D coach that rolls the D. So, like, a lot of people are pointing the finger at DJ. Well, he's not changing the D. It's the D coach. So, like, that's what people have to realize too. And I don't get it either. I'm with Craig, but yeah, that's a lot of minutes, man. I remember playing 30 minutes, and that's hard on the body. Like, groins, hip flexors early in the season. Like, you got to be careful.
You do. I think we're only what? It's happened to all 3 of the big guys, and at this point, you're moving into the point where you're cutting guys. Those 4 guys are now going to be sharing the bench, and you're not going to see. And because we're talking about and everybody's talking about, you're not going to see it again. That being said, that's a lot of minutes that are going to be. You're going to have Chychrun, Sanderson, or Shabbat on the ice at all times in about a week. So let's get excited about that as opposed to chatting.
Yeah, no, good point.
Because we're a week away from it. They all got it once. They're all healthy, and we're moved past it. But that top 4, man, that's going to be fun to watch when you have those guys on the ice at all times.
Agreed.
Well, again, it gives coaches a sense of security that, you know, things can be handled, right? You know, Bobby, I'm going to talk about you as a really talented big player. You knew when you could take advantage of a lesser defenseman, whether it be from a skill point of view or a physical point of view. And good teams didn't give you as many of those opportunities. And that's how you try to build your group. And I think that's exactly what I see with the Ottawa Senators. You know, you have those top 4. You know, Zub has really developed into a really good, solid player in the top 2 pairs. you got Travis Hamonic now who can, manage his minutes down there. It'll be interesting to see, if Tyler Clevin can hold on to a spot. I think his promise is really significant. How quickly he can grab a spot and contribute, but that size, that length, I think it gives him even more of an opportunity. We talked a little bit about Eric Bradstrom, but if I put all those 7 defensemen onto the plate, I'm pretty happy about what they all can do, not only individually, but collectively, and how as a coach you can use them, deploy them, and not feel vulnerable against really any team. I think that's what good teams are built off of.
Okay. I won't get upset, Bobby, if they don't play Thomas Chabot, Jacob Chikrin, Jake Sanderson, and Eric Brandstrom 30 minutes for the rest of the preseason. But I don't know that that's not going to happen.
Deal, because I think I think there's some decisions to be made on the lower end of that.
Yes.
So you're not going to see it again. They all got and
okay.
I'm with Craig. I'm guessing DJ and the D coach probably got a little bit of a whack from Pierre saying, "What are we doing?"
But that leads me.
I
got a question. Then I got 2, but I'm going to get to Josh Bailey in a sec. The first one is Shane Pinto, because that may affect who those blue liners are. Craig, what is your assessment on the Shane Pinto situation of how we've gotten this far and not had a resolution?
Well, I mean, can I use an example of Brady Tkachuk? It was a few years back when he missed the early part of camp. I don't get concerned at this point in time. I believe the parties, they're working at it. Obviously, there's some salary cap implications for the Senators that you got to work through. I think Shane is a real key player when we talk about the Senators moving forward and taking those next steps. And in my own belief, and I know as a manager at different points you go through these times, you believe that it will get done and you keep working at it. And everybody wants it to be done yesterday. But I think the fact is that there is a belief, and Pierre and everybody, I think, knows what value Shane brings to the team. You're trying to find that spot. And it's no different than Brady. We've seen it with other players. Anaheim's going through it now with Jamie Drysdale and Trevor Zegras. So it's something that but there doesn't appear to be anything contentious. I would be more concerned if there was this contentious back and forth. I went through a situation when I was first in Calgary with Derek Morris. And, Derek was a really good player for our team, but it got to be contentious. And you knew it was going to be a little bit longer. I don't see it this way. I don't feel that that's the way it's proceeding. And I think that that's positive. What the implications are in terms of the lineup, I guess people speculate. And as everybody does, fans, media, we look at it and go, okay, what could this mean salary cap wise? But, those are things that, have to be worked at, probably in the same mode. You got to move somebody out to get him under contract. At the same time, you're trying to get him under contract. Who are you considering making changes with? Those aren't easy, and certainly things appear going on in his management group are going through right now. But I do see positivity in the dialogue and how it's being presented.
But the issue is, which is different from Brady, because Brady didn't have the salary cap implications, is you can't. You can sign Pinto, but you have to move somebody before opening night. And so, as you sitting as a GM are going, well, I'm not going to help Pierre Dorion out. He's going to have to pay up in order to make this happen. And that's the concern among fans and whatnot of what's it going to cost collaterally to get this done. Well,
but that is the job of the manager, and you're going to be faced with those
at this point. Should they be here at this point, knowing that this was coming down the road?
Well, I don't know if it should or shouldn't be, but when you're trying to improve your team, and as a manager, you phone another manager and you say, okay, listen, I really want Bobby Ryan on my team, and they go, okay, that's great. Well, we want Jason York. And you go, that's going to deplete my blue line. That makes me weaker on the blue line, but I know I'm getting stronger up front. And that's the balance managers are dealing with every day. Yeah, we're dealing with it now on a salary cap situation and contractually. And that's what Pierre has to deal with. And it's not that he didn't know. It's just he probably wanted it settled a little bit earlier, but there's going to be a cost like not only financially to sign in Pinto, but also how you free up a roster spot in the salary cap space. And to do is minimize that cost to the greatest extent possible. Brent, you're right. The managers, I always joke about managers. You're sitting there in the life raft and it's starting to take on water, and you think they're throwing you a life raft or a life jacket, and what they're throwing you is an anchor. And no manager's ready to help you. And that is the case, and Pierre knows that. But he's going to have to navigate through this. And it's September 28th. I like their chances to minimize the cost, and we're not talking. It'll cost them a good player, no question about it. But Shane Pinto in the lineup, I think, is really important for the Senators, and I think that outcome is the key here. And certainly, the cost. There will be cost to it.
Would you be willing to part with a first-round pick and a player off your roster?
Well, it depends who the player is.
Let's say Matthew Joseph. He's the easy target at the moment.
Yeah, he is. And we all do the math, right? We look at a number that could work for Shane and the number that's there, right? So I mean, personally, I think if a team is getting a Matthew Joseph, and I'll use him specifically, you're getting a good, solid player on a good contract that can do a lot of different things. I don't necessarily feel like a couple of teams might say you got to give me a first round draft pick. I think where Pierre has to get to, and he will get there, is understanding, okay, do teams understand the value of Matthew Joseph? And you can ask for anything you want. It doesn't mean you're going to get it. And I think there's enough reasonable teams out there where he can make a deal where where the cost is not going to be excessive. I do believe that.
Well, last night he looked like a first rounder with his 2 goals, and he was probably the best player on the ice for the Sens. So maybe he's helping his cause here. Okay, Josh Bailey on a PTO, 1,000 games. We all know how good he has played over his career. He was wearing an A last night, and I'm just curious, am I reading too much into this? Is it just because he's a veteran guy, or is this a chance that we're likely to see Josh Bailey signed in Ottawa over the next couple of weeks?
The first thing I would say about it is it's respect for a player that has 1,000 games in the NHL. And I think if you want to bring players in on a PTO and you want to say to them, you have a legitimate chance to make our team, you have to show them the respect. And you're not going to get players to come in if they're just kind of in and out. And Josh has had a solid career. He adds a lot of different things. I think he can add some real positive things to the Ottawa Senators, playing obviously different role and deeper down the lineup, but somebody of his stature, of his experience, you treat them with respect. And would it be, I think, number one, it's a sign that we're going to treat our players that way. And number two, Josh Bailey has earned that respect. And I think that's incredibly important, because you're not just saying that about Josh Bailey. You're also letting every other player out there, the young players, the players that are established, that we're going to respect players of this stature.
Yeah, I think he's getting a spot, Craig. Like, I just think with all the because it is. I always say this: you just need one person in the league to like you, right? That's all you need. And you look at his history with Jack Capuano. You look at his history back in junior with DJ Smith, and he's a pretty useful player. As you said, you can go up and down the lineup. It'd be better if he was a centerman, but he's looked pretty good so far.
Well, Jason, you talked about going up and down the lineup. I think it's really valuable. You got a 23-player roster. There's going to be times when you're even within the course of a game, but injuries. Josh can play left wing. He can play right wing. He can play with good players. Can he sustain playing up in the lineup for long periods of time? Probably not at this period of at this time of his career, but you can put him up there, and he knows how to play with good players, and he can handle the different challenges. You go into a tough game, and okay, Josh, you might ask him to play 15 minutes instead of 11 or 12, and he can handle it because of all that experience. And with a team that is still relatively young, somebody that can, keep in mind, the New York Islanders were in the conference final for 2 consecutive years. He's been deep in the playoffs, and and obviously the familiarity you talk about with Jack and DJ. Like, I think players like that, if they show a capability to still contribute, I think there's real value in Josh and in recognizing it and having him as part of your group. I think there's only positive to having Josh Bailey on your team.
Yeah, I think there's and I just saw Twitter again. I think there's a belief that and I think the fans are expecting more than what the organization is expecting from him. When you bring in a player at that age that has been up and down a lineup in his career, has played at everything, you're looking for a plug and play player. You're also looking for experience. You're looking for a player that can calm things down in the room. A little more help for Giroux, right? With a guy you call him an old salt. He's younger than me, but you got to say that now. He brings a lot of different elements to your team. Like you look at what Derek Brassard did in his role last year. It's the same thing. So I think people were looking for a big showing out of him and putting points up and offensive flair, and that's not what the organization is bringing him in for. So I think people need to understand that he's a guy that maybe you're 13th forward at nights and maybe you're 6th forward on others. He's just a guy that you can move, and I want people to understand that because that's the role that he's going to play in this organization.
I agree with you, Bobby. And I think part of that too, people want to say about the individual points, it's what the team's trying to accomplish, like as a whole. And I think he'll contribute to a team getting more wins. And for players that can understand that, like, okay, in those hard times when you have a calming, experienced voice, don't worry, guys, it's okay. We'll get through this. That becomes really, really important. And, he helps other players get points. So so much of the time we want to take it down. Oh, he's only got, but what else has he contributed? What else has he contributed to help, other players be better and ultimately the team being better? And you just made that point. And I concur with you that Josh adds value. Don't measure it in his individual stats. Measure it in all the other things that he can do in a game.
Right. Very true. Very true.
What's your assessment on Ottawa's goaltending duo? Some would argue, well, we'll argue because I'll take the positive side. I think it might be the second best tandem in the Atlantic behind Boston.
I like your use of the word tandem, Brent, because, when you start goaltending now, I mean, Vasilevsky's having eight surgery on his back. You have to believe that the wear and tear of playing so much, contributed somewhat to that. I don't know how anybody could conclude otherwise. So what you're trying to do now in the NHL is just try to have a tandem, really capable goaltending that eases the pressures. A lot of times, one goalie, if he's your backup, is going to have to play on the back-to-back in challenging games. You don't want to have to put your goaltenders into spots where, they're asked to do more than they may be physically capable, even mentally capable at that point in time. And I'm talking about the fatigue. Fatigue isn't just physical, it's the wear and tear of going through it. And Anton Forsberg has shown that he can be a really good goaltender. I think he'll benefit from Korpisalo's presence. I think Korpisalo will benefit from Forsberg. It also gives Sogard a really good chance to play a lot of games in Belleville. And he looks promising. To me, I've watched him since he was in Medicine Hat, young goaltender. His progression has been really significant. So I think the goaltending tandem extends through the organization. I think that is Korpisalo a clear-cut 55-game a season goaltender? Is Forsberg? I don't think either one of them are. But if they're 45, 35, or even if it's I think that's good for the Ottawa Senators. And I think that you want consistency and stability in the net. The Vegas Golden Knights showed that last year. All three of their goaltenders, Aiden Hill, Laurent Brossoit, and Logan Thompson, they had injuries at different points. They all played well. Now, the defense was better in front of them, and that goes back to the team. We talked about the 7 D-men. I include Clevin in that right now. He may start in Belleville, but the depth of the defense also helps the goaltending. So it's an extension all the way through. And again, that's why I'm so bullish on the Ottawa Senators. I don't think it's just about, they're young, they're ready. I think they're built right. And I think they're built nicely to have success in the different positions and ultimately overall with the group.
Vladimir Tarasenko. How's he going to do? Is he a big question mark for you?
No. I think I'm going to go back to what Bobby said about Josh Bailey. You just have to look at be realistic about what Vladimir can do. Vladimir is a really good goal scorer. Is he going to score 50? No. But start thinking about where he plays in the lineup, how you give depth. For DJ and the coaching staff, they can get him some good matchups, and he can take advantage of matchups. He's got that offensive flair. He's a really smart offensive player with an excellent shot. But if Vladimir Tarasenko comes in and gets 30 goals, I think it's really good. You have Drake Batherson. You have players that Stützle. We talk about Kachuk, Giroux. They have more than enough offense. You don't need Vladimir to come in and give you this 50-goal season. Just come in and give us really good, strong play like you've done. He's obviously won. He's got winning experience. He's been good in the playoffs. To me, that's a nice addition. It's a one-year contract. I think that's really nice for Vladimir Tarasenko and the Ottawa Senators. We know where the money is in the system or where it isn't. Next year, it's going to open up with the cap going up, which is really good. But for this year, I think it's a really nice addition for the Ottawa Senators for a lot of different reasons. The other thing about Vladimir, he's not going to be intimidated. And by that, what I mean is the challenges of being a good team and the challenges of helping a group be really good, he's up for that. And he's demonstrated that. And I think that becomes really important as well.
So then do the Sens, I don't want to keep you much longer. I know you're a busy man. Do the Sens have any weaknesses that you see in their lineup, or what is the biggest one?
What I would say is, and this comes back, not just to the players. Mike Johnson and I have talked about this, not just to the players, but also to the coaching staff. It's one thing to improve your goaltending. It's one thing to be deep on the blue line, but I think they have to really be focused in on just being better, just a little bit more detail on the defensive side of things. How you're going to play in your own zone, and I think that. I think DJ and the coaching staff can get that instilled? Yeah, I do. I don't have any question about it, but emphasize it. Emphasize the importance of it and where it's going to pay off down the road. Because now as you move into this next, what I would call this next period of time for the Senators, you're trying to round out a lot of the different areas of your team. We know they can score. We know they're deeper. Well, now this is just the one area. And I wouldn't necessarily call it a weakness, but I would say is a point of emphasis. And a point of emphasis for the coaching staff and the players. Reinforce it, commit to it, and I think I don't have any reason to believe they can't have success, but it's going to take an emphasis and a commitment, all the time. Like that, and there's nights it's not going to work, and you just have to recognize. But that commitment, I think that'll make them really good. I go back to New Jersey. That's what Lindy was able to do in New Jersey, and the players, embraced it. He emphasized it. They had lots of success, and I think the same thing can happen in Ottawa.
Yep, that started well for Lindy. Eh? The first 2 games into the season, they were chanting "Fire Lindy."
Yeah,
by
remember
the
that?
end, they apologized. Yeah,
Incredible.
that's one of the great ones.
Yeah.
So okay,
You gotta love it though, because the fans did recognize. I mean, I was watching that game when they said we're sorry. It was, and Lindy was quite open about it. He goes, "Yeah, well, it kind of neat." Lindy could say, "I didn't hear it." He heard it. He knew about it.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a nice recognition that hey, we were wrong, and look at what Lindy's done for our team.
Craig, I really think New Jersey is going to miss Andrew Burnett a lot, though. He brought a lot of value to that coaching staff. Obviously, look, he's now the head coach of the Nashville Predators, but that's a big loss.
It is, and teams lose players, they lose coaches and valuable members of the team, and I include coaches in that. So now what's incumbent is it's incumbent upon Lindy. Lindy's got tons of experience in the league. He knows lots of people. Who are we bringing in? What are we going to emphasize? What's your strength? Again, we talk about strengths. So Andrew has some really unique strengths, and I agree with you, Jason. I think the world of Andrew. Obviously, Barry Trotz does too. And I look at it. So what Lindy now, you're not going to replace Andrew per se, but okay, what do we want in our coaching staff? What do we need for that person or persons to come in to really help us continue on the path that we were on? And if you're trying to get Andrew Burnett, you're not going to do that. So, and I think Lindy's experience affords him the opportunity to get it settled and understanding where it's at. And we'll see how it unfolds. But I think for Lindy and his experience, that's really beneficial when you lose somebody such as Andrew Burnett.
Is there a follow-up to that, Yorkie?
No, that's it. That's all I got.
All right. Before we let you
Listen, it just came to mind. I'm going to Nashville tomorrow, Craig. I got a big party in Nashville, 50th birthday. So that's why I thought of it.
You better hope the weather changes, pal.
Hey, are we meeting up, by the way, Bob? We going for a coffee Saturday?
Can we discuss this later?
Yeah, let's. Yeah.
Hey, listen, I know Craig loves going to Nashville.
I do, Jason. I was just there for the draft and everything. It's going to be a little cool. Hopefully, it's not raining when you're there and you can enjoy the time. I mean, both of you know, I'm amazed when Nashville came in the league in 1998. Bobby, you came in a little bit later, but look, like even when you came in the league, Bobby, you know, there wasn't much in downtown Nashville. I mean, there was the Embassy Suites and the Hilton, and to go there now and to see how the downtown core is just picked up. It's lively. They got so much going on. It's a fantastic city. I was talking to Hal Gill at the draft, and he just said, like, they love hockey. They've embraced it. And we talk about expansion in the league. Bobby, you played in Anaheim. You know, I was with Minnesota when we moved down to Dallas. You know, you start to think about, you know, people say, oh, expansion is up. It's worked.
Oh, it's worked.
It's worked.
It's worked. And not only that, it's the players' favorite now too. Nash Vegas.
Yeah.
It went from a room service city to a rookie party city in 5 years.
Taxes aren't bad either, eh, Bob? Hey, Bob, you don't mind the taxes there either.
No, not at all.
Okay, two last questions. I always say the last question ends up being 5, so let's go with 2. And I'll take a question from Corey Hill, who's in the chat, and says, who is going to be top defenseman for the Ottawa Senators this season?
I mean, you're giving me a pretty good
question.
Selection group here. I mean, we know it's 3 players. I think Thomas Chabot will benefit by having less ice time. We know how good Jake Sanderson is going to be. I think Jacob Chychrun, you know, being in Ottawa, he's talked about changing his training. Jacob has always been dedicated to training. He's talked about changing his training to get through the challenges and the rigors of a regular season. So if I had to expect one player to really, you know, establish himself, and that's nothing against Thomas or Jake because they're terrific players, I'd be watching for Jacob to really show, you know, his capabilities. I don't think there's any question he can score 20 goals. He's shown that. He's a presence on the blue line. And I think a healthy Jacob Chychrun can really be a significant player and really kind of be at that level where, you know, there's excitement. Not that there isn't excitement for Jacob, but excitement that, like, wow, are we ever lucky to have him?
Yeah. He looked pretty good in Toronto the other night with 2 goals, including the overtime winner. That's for sure. Last question. Our good friends at Patano have the Sens over under at 90.5 points this season. Would you take the over or the under?
I'm taking the over big time. The New Jersey Devils had 69 points 2 years ago. They went to 112. The Ottawa Senators had 86 last year. 4.5 more points, not a chance. I think they'll have over 100.
Wow, I like it.
So
we'll be giving you the key to the city next week, Craig. Just stop by the city hall. You can pick that up on your way out.
Thank you. I think it's great. I know Michael Andlauer. I've known Michael Andlauer for a long time. He's been part of the NHL. He's had success in the American League at the OHL level. He's always had the dream and the goal of owning an NHL team. I know how excited he is. I know how honored he is to be part of the Ottawa Senators. And I just see a partnership and call it a marriage between Andlauer and the Senators in the city of Ottawa. So happy to see Cyril Leader back. I mean, this is a phenomenal person. So when I look at everything that's unfolding here for not just the Senators, not just their fans, but the city of Ottawa, I'm excited. I'm excited for everything that I'm seeing happening there, and I know Ottawa Senators fans are excited too. And it's exciting times, and I don't think the Senators are going to disappoint. I really don't.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Fantastic.
Love it.
If you'd like to come coach, we'd like to have your enthusiasm on the bench. They need one more coach. There's only 4 on the bench right now.
I'll tell you a funny story, and we all have to know our roles. So I was in Dallas, and I was managing our farm team in Kalamazoo, and so Bob Gainey said to me, he goes, "Now listen," he goes, "You're here to support the coaching staff. You're here to make sure you're not going to sit up in the press box and coach." He goes, "If you want to coach," he goes, "I'll be happy to put you behind the bench." He goes, "But keep in mind, I don't like your chances to be a successful coach." I've kept that in mind over the years.
Fair enough. You could be a mental skills coach as far as I'm concerned. So there you go.
There you go.
Craig, we appreciate your time. It's always good to see you. I hope we can get you back on during the season. It's fun to chat with you, my friend.
Hey, Brent, anytime. You know what? You introduced me. I feel strongly about our relationship. You're good people. Jason and Bobby, you know, you guys are doing great work. I know how much you care about the Ottawa Senators. So you want me back on, just ask. The answer will be yes.
All right.
Thank
see you
you
tomorrow.
very much.
Yeah. Okay.